I'm going to stand down here so I can look back and see what's sliding around. so I am very thankful for the invitation to come up and talk to you about Chimala. For those of you that may not be as familiar with Chimala as some of the maybe the older members here are, Chimala Mission is an old work. It began in 1963 as a hospital work primarily then. Today, this work has grown tremendously, and it's grown a lot even in the last 20 years since New York Avenue took over the work. Today, we have a hospital that's 132 beds now. We have with seats like, oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. I won't go into all the specifics. But we also have a primary school, a secondary school, and a preacher's training school that's trained over 400 men to be gospel preachers. We have well over 100 congregations that have been started through our efforts there at the mission, and there's more than that. It's kind of to the point today to where it's hard to know who's responsible for which congregation getting started, because as through the years of all these men being trained to be preachers, a lot of them have gone out on their own and started churches in different parts of the country. And we're not the only work in Tanzania. There's another work up in the northern part of the country that's also got a preacher's training school. So, and we work together on a lot of things. So there's, between the two of us and the works we're doing, it's hard to know who's responsible for some of these congregations getting started because we work together. There's probably 300 or 400 churches of Christ now in Tanzania, at least, be my guess. So the church is growing there. The gospel is still being preached in a lot of different ways. And one of the things I want to say before we really get into this presentation this morning is every part of Chimala Mission is focused on spreading the gospel, whether it's at the hospital, whether it's at the primary school, the secondary school, and of course the preacher's training school is all about that. And even our state, which I talked about some in class this morning, many of them men are preachers on the weekends. They work there maybe as a carpenter or, or something like that, or a mechanic or something, but they go out and preach. They work at several of our guards are preachers that work on the mission. And so they work as guards there during the week, so they can go out and preach on the weekend. So every part of the mission is about spreading the gospel. And we just do a lot of that. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This slide here is our current missionary team. There's the Rogers up there on the upper right. They're our newest missionaries. They just joined our team last October. Richard has spent his life being a gospel preacher here in the United States, worked around Colorado and some different areas a lot through the years. He started making some trips to Malawi, him and Carol did. And they also did a lot of work down in Cuba. So they decided they wanted to be full-time missionaries. They went through Bear Valley's missionary program. One of the first students went through that program. They completed that, and they chose Chimala as the place to do a year's internship. I think they're going to stay and work full-time. They haven't made that official yet. But they're talking about what they're going to do next year. So I think they're planning on staying. So I'm very excited to have them. They're a hardworking couple and doing lots of things. Cheryl Bodie, you see on the upper left, she's been there since 2013 now. She's on her 4th year there. And she works at our hospital primarily. She's a registered nurse. She works a lot in helping manage in the medical side and the business side and raising funds for them at the hospital. And she has made drastic improvements in our hospital in the last 4 years working there full time. So we're really happy to have her. And as far as I know right now, she's planning on staying for many years longer, as long as her health allows. Now, any of you that read our newsletter, she's the one that fell a little over a year ago and broke her back. She was in the shower on Sunday morning. She'd been down helping one of our other missionaries we had over there at that time. They had a dog that was sick, and so she went down there and was helping them with her dog. And she rushed home to get cleaned up so they could go to church that morning. and she jumped in the shower and was hurrying. And of course, we just have concrete floors in the bottom of our showers. Uh, and she slipped and fell and broke her back. And so she had quite an ordeal getting over that. She ended up being flown to Nairobi and taken it there, and actually had an operation on her back. Had some fusions done in there. She's doing well. I can tell her it still bothers her some, but she will not complain. She just keeps on working. And of course, Cindy and I have been working full time now at the mission for over 10 years. We lived there 5 years full time. In the last 5 years, we've been stateside coordinators. We still travel over there, generally about 2 times a year when my health allows. I've had some health issues myself in the last couple of years. If you read our newsletters, in 2014, I was over there in January. Started having some heart problems, ended up being flown back by the recommendation of the doctors over there. Ended up having triple bypass surgery after I got home. Last year, I once again had some issues. They went in and did a stent and a pacemaker. Doing good now, so as long as the Lord lets me, I'm going to keep on working. But we've been over there twice already this year, and we love the work. We feel like we're the privileged ones. We get to go do this because the people allowed us to do it, and God has allowed us to do it, and we really enjoy working with the people over there. You go ahead and go to the next slide. Some of you may not know where Tanzania is. If you go ahead and click again, it's right there on the Indian Ocean, on the east part of Africa. I will say this right quick. Many people don't realize how large the continent of Africa is. That area of Tanzania is about twice the size of the state of California in area. So it's continent of Africa. You can fly for hours and hours and hours. There's maps out there. If you go online and look, type in how large is Africa. Some people have put together maps where you place like the whole of the United States, the whole of Europe, the whole of South America, and all these different other countries and stuff on the continent of Africa. It's a huge continent, by far the largest continent in the world. And so people don't realize when they see Africa, all the time, I know some people work in Africa, but you know, they're over in Nigeria or Ghana. And I said, well, you know, that's like thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away from us. So, no, it's a big place. Go ahead and go to the next slide. When you fly in, click again, you'll land in Dar es Salaam. And Dar es Salaam was always the capital of Tanzania till recently. Actually, when we started working there, they'd already changed to Dodoma, which you'll see there in kind of the center of the country. They had named that as the capital. I thought, well, the capital needs to be in the center. But really all happened in Dodoma was that's where the legislature, the parliament came together and to meet. All the government offices were in Dar es Salaam. So when you wanted to do something with the government, you traveled to Dar es Salaam. In 2007 and 2008, I was making around 20 trips a year to Dar es Salaam because we were trying to do a lot of work with the hospital. We were trying to get our primary and secondary school all registered properly with the government. So I was making lots of trips to the Dar es Salaam, and we had to drive. Go ahead and show them where in Mbeya. Click in. You see Mbeya, and that little pointer shows where the mission is located. The mission is located about 50 miles from Mbeya. Fortunately, about 3 or 4 years ago, they opened up a big airport on the other side of Mbeya. So now we can actually fly from Dar es Salaam to Mbeya and then drive back, which takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours to drive back from that airport. But it's much better than the 12 to 14 hours it takes to drive from Dar es Salaam to the mission. So we really enjoy being able to fly. Now, Cindy misses getting to see all the animals. When you drive, you'll get to see giraffes and lions and elephants and zebras and impala and all of the different animals that live in Tanzania. But it's sure a lot easier on her back. Mentioning her back, Cindy fell and broke her back in January. We were on our way over there in early January. We're in Dubai. We overnighted in Dubai. They transport you to the hotel from the airport, and then the next day they take you back to the airport. We're out there getting ready to get on the bus, and everybody's trying to put their suitcases in the trailer so that they can carry your luggage with you. And there was a mob of people and she went to step back and tripped over a curb and fell on concrete on her back. And she complained her back hurt, and I said, "Do you want me to take you to the doctor or the hospital here?" She said, "No, let's go." So the whole time we were there, she complained about her back hurt, and I knew that she'd hurt it. So we got home, we had it x-rayed, and sure enough, she had fractured her back. But they said it had been so long, there really wasn't much they could do with it. So she just had to let it heal up. And so she's a little bit bent now. They didn't heal exactly straight, but of course we got back this last time and she had surgery for her gallbladder and had it removed. So it's been a busy year for Cindy this year. I've been the ones the last several years having to go to all the hospital stuff. This year she's having her turn. But no, we love going to Tanzania, and anyway, you can kind of see where it's at. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I put this slide in here. Any of you ever do Google Earth? You can Google Earth Chimala, Tanzania, and you can look at this yourself. You can really zoom in. I kind of put this person on here just kind of give you an aerial view. That little yellow line up there, that is the major highway that goes across country. It goes from Dar es Salaam all the way through the country to Zambia, and you can turn off there before you get to Mbeya and go on down to Malawi. So it is the major thoroughfare. It's a 2-lane blacktop highway. Where the Chimala mission is actually where we have our 397 acres. The works in Tanzania originally began, Church of Christ work originally began where it says old mission site, and that's up in the mountains. There's a little jagged yellow line over here. See how that's 57 hairpin turns to get up there to that old mission site. We still own that property, and I've made that trip already several times this year because we're trying to develop some projects up there. And so we're working on trying to we've got some pine trees planted up there, about 14,000 already. Hope to end up maybe as many as 20,000 to 30,000 pines growing as a pine forest for future income for the mission. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This slide shows you where the hospital. I generally bring a little pointer. I forgot to bring that. The hospital's over here. We've got staff housing, which you can't hardly see because of the trees. Kind of hide our primary school, our secondary school, our shop area. Right down here, you see that metal roof on there? That's our Cindy's nice house. That's where we live when we're over there. Got several other houses around for missionaries. Anyway, it's a big operation. And of course, you can see the church building and CBI. It's all right there. My header's still on CBI. I don't know what happened there. I'll redo that. Anyways, we go on to the next slide. This picture right here, of course, I put on here just kind of the picture. The population of Tanzania is now 56 million. We talked about that some in class this morning, how large it's grown. Any of you take the Christian Chronicle and read it. There was an article about 3 months ago that's related to this picture in the Christian Chronicle. This picture is actually taken at a funeral. In Tanzania, when someone dies, the village goes to the funeral. It's kind of just, their culture. It's a big deal for when somebody dies there that's older. Their society, everybody tries to contribute a little bit to the family because they're very poor. The average income there is like $2 to $3 a day at best. So they're poor people. And so as their village takes a village support kind of deal comes from that type of society. So when somebody dies, everybody will come, bring a little bit of food, help maybe a little bit financially to help to get that person buried and really help the family during their grieving. Well, this particular story here is down south of the mission, going towards Malawi. Our guys from our preacher's training school that do the evangelism work, we're down there doing a campaign, going house to house in a village down there, a pretty good-sized village. And they ran across an old man that went to our original preacher's training school up on the mountain back in the 50s and 60s. This man had fell away. He was no longer worshiping with the church. And our guys got to talking to him, and he repented and came back to the church. And well, they went back down there 2 or 3 weeks later to do a follow-up on their work. And that man knew they were coming back, and he had told his family that morning, he said, I'm going to be there at church today, and you all need to get in the church. You need to be going to church. And I think some of them were members, some of them were not. And he really encouraged his family to be there. And so our guys went down there and they had church service, and the guy came and he had repented, and he announced, I think some of his family came forward wanting to be baptized. And some other members there, they had several that came forward that morning wanting to be baptized after services. And so, you know, it's very different there. You don't have a baptistry at the building. Now, the church building at the mission does, but it's one of the only ones I've seen that actually has a baptistry at the building. So typically, when somebody wants to be baptized, we have to go find the nearest water. Sometimes that's a matter of, you know, a few hundred yards down to a creek, or sometimes it's a matter of 3 or 4 miles to the nearest creek or little pond of some sort that you can find water deep enough to baptize in. And so they ask our guys generally, and I've been part of that many times, where they'll say, somebody comes forward and wants to be baptized. I say, can you help us get there, because we got cars there. So they loaded up the car, and everybody was going to go down and meet at the local river for the baptism. Well, as they started down there, and this old man was riding with our guys, he started feeling not well. And our guys stopped and tried to get him medical attention. And before they could get him in medical attention, he died. And so they went ahead and went, you know, after they got him taken care of, went ahead and baptism. But the family asked our guys to stay and help do the funeral, because they do the funeral pretty quick, because there's no embalming or anything there. And so our guys went and stayed and did the funeral. And one of the other things they do there when they have a funeral, they preach. Our guys take advantage of that. You know, you got the whole village there nearly. And so they preach. And Cindy sometimes gripes at me when I'm asked to do a funeral on this side. I said, no, you're not in Tanzania, remember? But I still can't hardly resist, at least saying something. But anyways, our guys preached at this funeral. 8 more souls were added that day. They came forward at that funeral for preaching that was done there. And so Joseph wrote me a whole report about what had happened on this. Joseph Honga, who's the head of our evangelism efforts and leads CBI. And I put that in a newsletter, our own newsletter. And Eric up at Christian Chronicle read it, and he wrote me back and said, would you mind if I use this in the Christian Chronicle? I said, sure, that'd be great. So this picture was taken at that funeral. So if you read the Christian Chronicle, or if you may have read it in our newsletter too. So anyways, you go on the next slide now. The hospital is where the mission work began. Like I said, the government, Tanganyika, when they got to independence, said we had to have something to help the people. You see that little white building at the top? Andrew had that building shipped over, one of the little metal buildings you put together, you know, kit type deals. And Dr. Mays and his wife started seeing patients in there and handing out medicine in that little white building while Andrew got the construction started of the hospital. In 1965, the actual hospital opened up, and that's a picture taken inside that facility there. Go ahead and go to the next slide. You can go ahead and start clicking on those. Our hospital has grown. 3,000 babies a year now are being delivered. You just kind of do the math on that, how many a day that is. 3,000. So any of you ladies that like to sew or knit, make, you know, baby blankets, or do the little stocking caps, or diaper shirts, we hand out a set of those to every newborn there. And we've got ladies around in the States that are making these for us and sending them to us. So if you'd like to be a part of that, you can talk to Cindy a little bit about that afterwards. But we always can use those. We're a 132 bed hospital. When it opened in 1965, it's 50 beds. It's 132 now. We see 60,000 patients a year. And we see an average of 15 to 1,600 HIV patients every month. These are part of our HIV program. And we probably actually see more HIV patients than that. Those are the ones that are enrolled in our program, where they come every week or two and get their medications there to be treated. So we take the viral counts. We have a CD4 machine now where we can keep track of what's going on. We're actually in line to get even the newer equipment that even does a better job of measuring than CD4 does. So we're hoping to get that soon. We have about 108 to 115 full-time employees there. We do 500 vaccines each month for the children. We also do about 800 well exams for the children each month there. And this is the good part. I mentioned in the beginning, every part of our work is to share the gospel. Last year at the hospital alone, just in the hospital work there, 64 baptisms at the hospital. If I had more time, I'd tell you a whole lot of good stories about all that. I know y'all don't want to sit here all day and talk about this, but y'all can talk to me after church. I'll stand around and talk early and talk about that. But we do a lot of work there. Cheryl does mobile clinics also. She goes out into the village a couple times a week, and sometimes 3, but just tries to limit it to 2 a week, and does different clinics out in the villages where they can't, a little further away from the mission, where they can't walk very well to the mission. Finds lots of interesting cases out there. This kid on the left here found that he was paralyzed, so she got him a wheelchair. The parents were just having to carry this kid around everywhere. We had a wheelchair we shipped over for a kid, so she took it out there and let him have it so they could get him around. She's finding more and more malnourished children lately, seems like. A lot of this is HIV related because mom dies, leaves a little baby. Grandparents are trying to take care of it. Of course, over there, the only way they feed infants typically is nursing. Mom's nursing them, so when the mom's gone, they have struggles to feeding. So Cheryl is really starting a program right now. You'll be reading about this in our newsletter back here. If you pick it up, there's an article in there about that. She's trying to raise funds to help cover the cost of teaching these parents grandparents and family, how to take care of these babies to get them grown up to where they can be on their own. So I didn't put any pictures in here about it. It's on my newest stuff. Matter of fact, there is a picture though in a newsletter. Shows this baby that came in and you would think it was dead. It's so skinny. It's just so malnourished. 3 weeks later, there's another picture in there what that baby looked like after 3 weeks of good nourishment. So it's really amazing work she's doing in a lot of different ways. She's trying to teach them how to do all this stuff. You go ahead and go to the next slide. This is a picture of our newest ward, the OB ward. I mentioned that in class that we just did an extension of it. And so this is actually has electric beds, and I had a hospital in Tennessee that donated a bunch of beds to us. They were buying all new beds for their hospital. They called me, said, would you be interested in hospital electric beds? I said, sure. So I went to Tennessee and rented a truck and drove back a truckload of hospital beds. Now some of them need repair, and we still haven't shipped them all of them because we went through and found out which ones worked well. We shipped the ones that worked well in the last container. We're in the process of refurbishing the others, and we're going to ship them on this next container we're getting ready to do. Go ahead. When we started to work there in the 60s, there'd been a preacher's training school up on the mountain with the missionaries working up there. That work went away during the 70s. Times got tough in Tanzania in the 70s. You know, the Tanganyika got their independence, became Tanzania, and they had a lot of growing pains those early years. And I mean, it got to the point you couldn't hardly buy anything to eat. You know, it was just tough to live there during those times. Wasn't very many missionaries left in Tanzania. We had one family that stuck it out through all those years there, and they stayed and kept the hospital going. And by the early 80s, the Stapletons had moved over and was working with them. And I know I've talked to Bob a lot about it, how tough it was when they first moved over there. You know, a special treat was if you could find someplace that had a Coke for his kids. He had a house full of kids. So it was tough times living over during those times. But he realized that we needed that by then that preachers training school on the mountain had closed. We didn't have any place to train preachers. They had to go to Arusha, which is all the way across the country, a long ways, even train somebody to be a preacher. So Bob started Chimala School of Preaching. In 2004, I was approached as an elder there at New York Avenue. I was the missions elder at that point. And I was approached by Bear Valley about the interest in starting one of their schools in our area. After several meetings and including a trip to Tanzania with some members from the Bear Valley staff, we decided to make Chimala School of Preaching a part of the Bear Valley program because they had the ability to offer degrees there with bachelor's degrees and master's degrees, which would kind of give a little bit higher education to these guys. So we agreed to do that. So in 2005, it became Chimala Bible Institute. Go on to the next slide. This is our class this year we took in January of our staff and students over there. We have over 30 men. They're being trained to be preachers right now. And that continues to grow every year. Well, actually, I say it continues to grow. The demand continues to grow. As we continue to grow the church there, we have more and more people interested in being trained to be preachers. The issue is the finance side of it. You know, because it's just like here in the States, somebody wants to go to a school of preaching, they go out and they raise support and support them and their families while they're in preachers training school. Well, there they can't afford to support the men and their families, so we try to help support them. It costs us about $100 a month on average to support a guy through preachers training school. That's to educate him, feed him, house him, and give him a few dollars to ship back home every month to his family while he's at the preachers training school. So we're trying to raise more funds because the demand's higher than the funds we have available right now to run the school. Go ahead to the next slide. Go ahead and start clicking on that. Yeah. So for $100 a month, you can support a guy through that school. And it really does help get these guys out there. We do have some men. Like I mentioned earlier, some of our guards and different ones that work there at the mission are trained through this school and have stayed there to work, to preach. We have a guy right now that's been preaching for years at a congregation that's probably 30 miles nearly from the mission, good 25 miles from the mission. I didn't realize he was doing it till a few years ago. I made a trip out to this congregation I never had been to before. It's out quite a ways from the mission, and I went out there one Sunday morning because we've got so many. You know, it takes a long time to get to 100-something congregations. So I told Menard, my kind of right-hand guy, does my interpreting for me. I said, let's go to that church. I've never been out there. So we go out there. We get there, and members are showing up, and they say, will you preach? I said, yeah, I'll preach today. And so when the church gets started, I realized, looking around, well, there's one of my guards here. And so after church, him and his wife were there. He got up to him and got talking. He's been going out there all these years, been the preacher for him out there. And riding his bicycle out there. Pumping his wife out there on a bicycle. And it's not an easy ride. There's some pretty major hills between the mission and this church. And after church, he comes up to me and said, would you mind giving my wife a ride back to the mission? So this guy's up in his upper 40s, maybe 50. It's getting hard for me to pump my wife back and forth out here. So that's kind of the dedication these guys have. And so they do wear these bicycles out. So we need to buy new bicycles every once in a while. For about $125, we can buy a good bicycle for these guys. They'll hold up to them on that rough roads and stuff, and dirt roads they ride on out there. Also in church buildings, when we go out and start a new congregation in the village, our policy is when they first start, they'll find a house they can rent to meet in till they grow to the point they can't outgrow the house. And then we advise them to find a piece of property. And out in the small villages, generally the village will give them a piece of property. or a piece really cheap just for a few dollars that they can have to build on as a church. And we require them to go out and make their own bricks to build their own foundation. They build foundations by digging the footers and putting big granite chunk rod in, which is available over there, and putting a little cement over it. Then they build the walls upon that. We require them to do all that work. And once they do that, we will help them generally put a roof on it because they can't afford the cost of the tin and the lumber to build the roof. It costs around $1,000 generally for an average church building. And that's a lot of money for people that make $2 a day to come up with. So we try to help them. We make them invest in it first, and they get it to that point, and then we'll try to help them get a roof on there so the building will last a long time. And we do about 4 or 5 a year church roofs on average. So we can always use funds for those. You can go on to, I left off Bibles. We do also always need money for Bibles. We don't go around handing out Bibles. One of the things we found early on, when it's so poor, you can go out handing out Bibles. Everybody will come get a Bible, so they'll have it to go sell. So way we do it, or they will be baptized to get a Bible. You know, if you tell them you're going to get a new Bible if you baptized, they'll be baptized just to get a Bible. So the way we work, when we go out and working on campaigns, we'll preach and instead of people be baptized, and we'll go back about 2 or 3 weeks later and talk to the preachers. Are they coming to church? And they say, yeah. Well, here's a Bible, so they'll have a Bible study out of it. So make sure that they're actually coming for the right reason and doing it, because we do want to have Bibles. We want to be able to study, but it's a different culture when people are that poor, what they'll do. So we want to make sure they're dedicated and want to really be a Christian. And so, but we do give away hundreds, if not thousands of Bibles a year. So we always use funds for Bibles. We have several different ways we approach it. Like I mentioned, everything on the missions evangelistic minded. You know, our schools down there, I haven't really talked about them. I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute, but we have 40 to 50 baptisms down at schools every year out of students. They're coming from all over the country to get education. 60-something baptisms at the hospitals last year. So everything's evangelism efforts. But our main outreaches are through World Bible School correspondence, campaigns, radio evangelism. Radio evangelism has been really successful, and it's something we have started in the last few years. Talked about it for a long time before we did it. And to be honest with you, the Tanzanians started on their own. They went out west of us in the Mbozi region. Some of those preachers out there got together in the churches, and they pulled up enough money to buy 2 slots, 30-minute slots of airtime to preach on. And they preached, and we've got a guy out there that's a really good preacher. And he preached 2 lessons back to back. After he did that, they called and said, we need help. That's what's going on. We never dreamed how many phone calls we'd get. They gave out, they have cell phones, and they gave out their numbers. And so we can't answer all the phone calls. So we're getting calls from all over. People want to know more about the gospel. So they've never heard anybody preach just from the Bible like we do. Most of the denominations, they're preaching, different things. Y'all guys, they recognize the difference. Y'all are just preaching from the Bible. And so we can tell a difference. We will know more about the Church of Christ. And so from that, it's just continued. We have 20, 30, 40 baptisms a month just out of radio evangelism. It's amazing what's going on radio evangelism. And of course, the follow-up work that's required. So this is we're helping them pay for the airtime now. We actually got a second program starting in another area now. And I think this is really going to be a big part of the future of the church growth is radio evangelism. We do the Gospel Chariot. Any of y'all ever seen the Gospel Chariot or heard anything about that? It's work out of South Africa. A man named George Funk started this. He builds customized trucks. The one we use is what he calls his bush truck, because we don't have many roads in Tanzania. And most places you go is at best a dirt road to get to it. And so took this 4-wheel drive, 4-ton Mercedes and had it custom built. Has this big box truck It's got a stage door that folds out the side, got a built-in baptistry in it, carries 200 stacking chairs. They got a tent attached to the side of it, built-in sound system where you can hear it for all over the whole village when they're out there preaching off of it, which I've had a chance to preach off of a few times myself. And it's just like a church building on wheels. The way we do the program, we'll go out there before it ever gets there, and we start handing out tracts, establishing Bible studies, get the interest going in that village about the church. And when we show up, and we spend 5 days there preaching off that truck and doing follow-up and Bible studies during the day and preaching in the evenings into the night. I mean, it's amazing work. So we do this every year. We'll be starting the end of this month, our next campaign. We do it once a year. And it's on the gospel chariot. We do back to Bible seminars. This is off of those who are doing correspondence work. After they get to a certain point, we'll call back to Bible seminar in that area of all the people who have been doing correspondence work. And we'll do a 3-day seminar there, doing an in-depth Bible study. And that's where we have a lot of our baptisms on people doing correspondence work. We do ladies seminars. We just had our ladies seminar 2 or 3 weeks ago. Had 2 baptisms at the ladies seminar. The reason we have baptisms at the ladies seminar, the church ladies that come in from all these villages, we had over 100 ladies there. They bring their neighbors, they invite their neighbors to come with them. They're not members of the church. And they get to hear these lessons that are taught on the Bible. Cindy's been part of this for a long time. She puts the outlines or the material together for these lessons, and our Tanzanian ladies make their own outlines up and translate them and teach them. So, whoops, I knew I was going to do that for you. And we do youth seminar. We just had our youth seminar the week before. The ladies had 9 baptisms this year out of our youth seminar. That's kids that come from churches around. You know, growing up there, the average congregation maybe have 15, 20 members. If you're a kid, teenager, you're generally the only kid there. You're lucky if you got one other kid in your congregation. And so it's a great opportunity for all these young people to come together, see other members of the church, be around, you know, and get to hear really good lessons that are geared to them, their age group. So we always have a lot of baptisms every year with that. Last year, in all of our evangelism efforts, we had 720 baptisms, 2016. All right, next slide. This is Frank Makambulu. Frank is the one that heads up the correspondence work. He's a hard-working man. He's been working full-time along with all the other things he's doing for the congregation out north of us. That's a struggle for him, and I know he's talked to me about 2 or 3 times. It's out in an area where we have both Maasai and Sukuma tribes. And I know this stuff I don't mean much to you. Probably most of you heard the Maasai. They're the ones that wear the bright red, real traditional African garb, the tall guys that can jump and all that, and the cattle herders. You see a lot of, when you see a lot of pictures about Africa, that's the people they show a lot of times, the Maasai. They got the big, long, droopy ear lobes. And so that's the Maasai. Well, the Sukuma are also cattle herders, and these 2 tribes don't get along real well with each other because they both like to herd their cattle on. They've had wars over the year about whose land is who to graze on. And, well, in this particular area north of us, both of them are living out there. And we have trouble getting the men to all come. And we baptized a lot of both of them. But when we started the church, they're having a hard time worshiping together. And I don't know if we're going to resolve the problem, really. We've talked about it, but we may have to end up on 2 different churches. I don't know. So it's one of those things. Frank's really frustrated because he's tried his hard to get those men to work together, but he's still struggling. Ladies will come. We can't hardly get any men to come. So go on to the next one. These guys right here, some of our kind of primary men, and there's a lot of people involved. But these 5 guys were down there talking to me right before we left, and I said, "Here, let me get your picture because you kind of the main guys." The guy on the left, that's Joshua Wakasima. Joshua has been a CBI teacher for many years at a Bible school, but he just retired from that because he's been also our hospital evangelist the last 3 years. And said, "I want to focus full-time on hospital evangelism and start new churches." And so I really think I'll step down from teaching at the school because you got enough teachers. So, Joseph, the next one in the striped shirt there, Joseph has been a teacher a long time at CBI. He also heads up the CBI as the director of the school, and he's been heading up evangelism for him for the last 3 years. So he's a very busy guy. He's always on the go. Boaz Kasiva is a great preacher, interpreter, very interesting guy. He grew up in Zambia. He can speak like 9 or 10 languages. He's an elder at the church there at the mission, and he has a great heart for doing evangelism, go out preaching and teaching. So, and then the next guy is Ezekiel Harrison. Ezekiel is a great preacher. He's a teacher, and he loves just going out and teaching and preaching. And he's also gotten really involved in this chicken farming. He's been going out and doing seminars on that churches and trying to show churches how they can raise chickens and help support themselves better. So he's done some. And then Peter Comatul on the right, he's also been one of our teachers at CBI, and he is one of starting the new radio program in Baya, and he works with some of the churches in Baya a lot. He's not teaching much at our school anymore because he's focusing working with churches in Baya, the nearest big city, which is really where we want to develop the church and get it strong. We have like 6 congregations in Baya now. We want to really get that, so those churches strong and big, so they can actually one day kind of help support the works in Tanzania. Go on the next slide. This is a picture of a World Bible School camp. One of the new things we just tried just recently. They went out and you set up like a tent and your sign and say you're doing World Bible School. People come by in the villages to talk to them. We just did this recently in 3 different places and ended up with 22 baptisms out of that work right there. Go on the next one. This is kind of the results of the last gospel trip we had last year. This 5 villages, 5 days in each one, ended up 121 baptisms out of those 5 villages. So you just kind of gives you the idea of the results we're having out of that. One village had over 40 baptisms. So it's amazing what the work's been done using that tool. All right, next slide. Primary school. When we took over the work in 1998, Jerry Herring went over there first. He was one of the elders I was serving with. And Jerry came back and he said, I really think Christian schools would be a great long-term plan for the mission. We had a lot of people there that we would find couldn't read the Bible. The education was so poor in Tanzania at that time that most people read on about a 2nd or 3rd grade level. So to be able to be good Bible students was difficult for them. Their comprehension wasn't that good in reading. And we knew if we did it, it would take a long time for this to pay the dividends. But I think we're getting there. We started the school in 1999, the primary school, with a plan of adding a grade each year. And so we've been doing that. We now have the primary and secondary school both operating there. And there's talk of us going on to the next level, what's called high school there, which is kind of like a junior college here. When you graduate high school, you can actually earn a certificate to be able to teach or work as a nurse. You know, it's kind of on that level. Because you can go on to college, you know, to university and get your bachelor's degree, but you can actually get a job out of high school that's, you know, a skilled job. You can see these kids get to study the Bible. Or don't get to, they have to. Study the Bible 1 hour each day. It's part of the national curriculum. You have to declare yourself either a Christian school or a Muslim school. Of course, we're a Christian school. And so we teach Bible, and it's part of the national exam, the Bible is. I mean, that's just to give you an idea the difference between there and here, where you can't even lay a Bible on your desk anymore at the school. It's actually part of the curriculum there. And not only do our guys teach here, we get invitations to go to the government schools and teach Bible in their schools. So it's really a great opportunity for us to be able to share with these kids the gospel. Many of these kids have gone home after they've been baptized there and talked to their parents, because while these kids live on the mission, we have about 400 and something kids that live there full time in dormitories. So they're there all the time. And when they go home and talk to their parents, they'll say, Mom, Dad. And of course, I didn't say this part. Some of these kids live like 500 miles away. The kids are sending their parents are sending there to go to school because we got a very good reputation in our school. But they've gone home and taught their parents, and the parents have been baptized. That's when they start teaching their parents, hey, this is what the Bible said. And these kids, when they graduate 7th grade, even before they get to secondary school, I find that most of these kids can tell you more about the Bible than most adults here, even in the church. They've studied it every day. They've been teaching it, day after day after day after day. I mean, some of our guys that have been preachers and teachers at CBI, some of our older guys that are slowed down a little bit, they're still down there teaching these kids Bible every day. So, and we have one lady that teaches the little ones. It's a great evangelist in her home right. I mean, she go out for our campaigns and helps study with ladies and stuff. She's very good. Diana. Here, you go on the next slide. It's a picture down at our secondary school. We graduated 4 classes now at the secondary school. It's doing well. And we're getting ready to start a new computer science lab there. I think it's really going to add even to the level that our school is considered a science school. And our goal is to actually one day have nurses and doctors coming out of this school and come back to work at our facility. You on the next slide. And this is the young lady right here is one of our graduates of our school at the primary school. Left and actually ended up going through teacher school, and she's now one of our teachers. And then we have 2 more that are in school this year. We'll graduate at the end of this year. There'll be 2 more teachers that come through our schools. So we're graduating some teachers that are going to be back there working. There's Christians that are coming back to teach at our schools, in which I'm really excited about. On the next slide. There's one other area we ask for help sometimes. Because of HIV and other problems in people's lives, parents die there. And in their society, the family generally tries to take care of the orphans, whether it's the grandparents or an aunt and uncle. But they struggle to pay the school fees as it is in their society. So when they've had to take on extra kids, it's very difficult for them to be able to send these kids to a good school. So we try to help do some scholarships for orphans. We also have expanded this program to some of our preachers that work out in these small villages where, they're not making anything. They're out there, struggling like everybody else to live out there in that small bush village somewhere to be able to preach the gospel to them. So we're offering classes to their kids to be able to come there and go through. So for $60 a month, you can support a kid through primary school. He'll live there on campus, be fed, housed, and educated for 60. And secondary school is $90 a month. So if anybody would be interested in helping a kid through school, we have that also. And we're still trying to do construction. The secondary school needs to build another science lab building. The government has asked us to expand our labs. And so they're asking us to build another science building. So we're trying to work on plans of doing that. That costs about $15,000 to $20,000 to build that building. So, all right, next slide. We do ship a container every year. I mentioned a while ago, we're trying to get ready to ship another one later this year. We just shipped one towards the last part of last year. This is a picture of it when it arrived. You can see exam beds there and lawnmowers in there. It had ultrasound machines in there. It had all the solar equipment for the hospital and school in there. It had lots of stuff that was very neat. All the electric beds for the hospital. We put a lot of stuff on those 40-foot containers. So as them getting ready to open up the doors to unload everything out of there. And like I said, we're getting ready to do that again. That costs us about $12,000 a year to ship one of those containers. That's all through from our door to their door. Next slide. And this is the last one. I know this one y'all been looking for. uh, Christ, one of the last commands he gave us was to go into all the world and preach the gospel and baptize and teach them about his ways. And that's what Chimala Mission's all about. And I know and I agree wholeheartedly the world starts this morning since we walk out this door. And we need to be teaching the gospel everywhere. If I'd done a class this morning about the Bible, that's what it was going to be about. I ended up talking about Chimala the whole time. But we need to be teaching here. I think all of us agree to that. The world out here needs to hear the gospel. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people here don't want to hear the gospel. And that's a struggle, but that doesn't stop us from wanting to share it. And so we should share it every chance we get. But like Christ said in John 4:35, lift your eyes and look onto the field. They're white unto harvest. And that is very true in Tanzania. People there, it's what drew me there. When I went over there, my first trip in 1999, I got invited to go out and do a little house to house. And house to house there's interesting because, the little small houses are scattered around in the village. It's not on streets like we have here. They're just kind of here and there. And as you go up to somebody, you say, Hodi. And that in Swahili is asking them permission to come on their property and come up towards their house. And they'll say, Karibu, which means you're welcome. And you go up and, you start talking to them, about, would you like to study the Bible? And I was amazed how many people say, Ndio, which means yes. And so it would, I was just shocked. Now, not everybody's willing to believe and be baptized. I'm not going to tell you that. But they are willing to sit down and study it every time. And a lot of them do believe. And so that's what I guess really touched my heart more than anything. Because I'd been here. I'd went out and done house to house and door knocking campaigns and tried to study with people. And had doors slammed in my face and all this stuff. To be able to go somewhere and say, would you like to study the Bible? And people say, yes. And sit down and actually study and have a real conversation with you, show real interest in what the Bible has to say. I found so, I was like, wow, this is where I need to be. And that's what really, I went home and told Cindy, I said, when I go back, you need to go with me. And of course, she was like I, she fell in love with the people and the desire for people there to want to learn about God and Christ and what the Bible says. So, it's a great opportunity. And I would advise anyone, if they ever get a chance to go to a third world country, whether it's Chimala or anywhere else, you ought to do it. It'll change your life in lots of different ways. I mean, if I had time, I could talk to you all day about what the difference is when somebody has to grow up in a third world country. Ladies, you don't have any idea how lucky you are. You just don't have any idea. Now, I'm not saying the guys are not blessed too, but ladies there have a hard life. Their day starts going out and cutting wood and finding water. And it's hard. It's not like the water's next door. It's like maybe 2 miles down here where you got to go get buckets and carry them down there and carry them back. So you have water to cook, and it's not clean water when you get it. It's water out of an old dirty river. So it's their whole lifestyle is tough, and they have no choice. That's the life they've been given to live, and so but you know what? Christ died for all of us, including them. And they're thankful to hear the message. I didn't ask you, y'all generally offer an invitation? You generally offer an invitation here? I figured you all were. I figured you were. I figure that's the case. But you know, God does offer something else for us, and that's prayer. And I can tell you all a praying bunch. And so I never like to close without offering. You know, if somebody's got something they need to confess or pray about or need assistance, you know, we ask you to come and stand and sing.